If you clicked on this deep dive because you are just tired, tired of scraping by, tired of watching your paycheck basically evaporate in 48 hours, tired of those overdraft alerts, and really just tired of praying nothing unexpected happens this week, I just want you to pause for a second and take a deep, steady breath with me right now.
That's a great place to start.
We're going to start right here. You are not alone. You are not failing. And this stress, this exhausting experience of living constantly on the financial edge, it is so much more widespread than we ever acknowledge.
Oh, massively.
We are talking about millions and millions of people in the U.S. just cycling through the exact same feeling of dread and exposure that you might be feeling.
Absolutely.
So before we even get into the mechanics of it, we need to internalize something really vital. Your current situation is almost certainly not a reflection of your character or your intelligence or how hard you work.
Not at all.
It is the result of the system of intense psychological stress, what we call the scarcity mindset, and I think critically, a profound lack of the practical financial structure that none of us were ever taught.
We were never taught this. If you learned about finance in school, it was probably some complex thing about investing, not, how to make sure the rent check doesn't bounce.
Exactly. So today, our mission is to move past that shame and that self-blame, because those are really the tools that keep people stuck. We are tackling how to escape the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle by looking at two things at the same time. The mechanics of money flow and, just as important, the deeply human, the emotional, and even the neurobiological side of managing your money when you're under chronic pressure.
You have to look at both. You can't separate them.
And to guide us through this really complex terrain, I've brought in an expert who truly gets both sides of this coin. Not just the spreadsheets, but the nervous system. You spent years researching why intelligent, hardworking people stay trapped in this cycle, and more importantly, what concrete structural steps create a real escape route.
Thank you. And I want to emphasize that initial point you made immediately. If you are listening to this and you are living paycheck to paycheck, you are in vast company. It is absolutely crucial for your own mental health to understand the scale of this.
Right.
Because that data, it just immediately dismantles the idea that this is some kind of personal moral failing.
So what are the numbers? What are we actually looking at?
When we look at the macroeconomic data, the reality is pretty stark, depending on the specific studies and how they define it. Using most or all of your income before the next paycheck hits,
Right.
We see figures consistently between 55 and 65% of all Americans.
65%?
Yeah.
That's staggering. This isn't an edge case. This is the default for the majority of people.
It is the default, precisely. And that prevalence proves this is not about individual weakness or whether you're bad with money. The cycle is maintained by overwhelming systemic realities.
Like what? What are those realities?
Well, rising costs that outpace wage growth, chronic emotional stress, a huge timing mismatch between when you get paid and when bills are due, and like you said, a complete absence of financial structure. We have to be clear about that foundation before we can start building anything on top of it.
Okay, let's unpack those realities, that invisible trap. Why is this cycle so incredibly hard to break, even when someone is trying with everything they have?
We have to start with the economic pressures because it really does feel like the deck is stacked against the average person. And we're not talking about discretionary spending here, lattes and avocado toast.
No, we're talking about survival.
We are talking about basic necessities. The cost of living in the United States has just skyrocketed across every single non-negotiable category.
You see it every time you go to the store.
You do. Think about rent. Think about your grocery bill, how much that has ballooned in the last 3 years. Think about car payments, childcare, which is astronomical, health insurance premiums, utilities. Everything that's mandatory is significantly more expensive.
And wages haven't kept up. Not even close.
Not even remotely.
Yeah.
So that inflation has squeezed the middle and lower classes simultaneously. And the result is that the margin for error, your buffer, has shrunk to basically nothing.
To zero.
Exactly. And when that margin is zero, the second major factor kicks in. Unpredictability. When you have no buffer, every tiny little disruption, and these are just normal life things.
Yeah, a flat tire.
A flat tire, a sick kid who needs to go to urgent care, an unexpected medical bill, a surprise fee from your kid's school, a pet emergency, even just an annual insurance fee you forgot about.
Right.
Any of those things escalate instantly into a full-blown financial and psychological crisis.
And I don't think people who aren't in it can really understand how physically and emotionally exhausting that constant high alert state is. You're just perpetually braced for impact.
It is exhausting, and that sustained physical stress, it holds your nervous system captive. It keeps you in this chronic state of low-grade anxiety, and that brings us directly to the core psychological trap.
The bandwidth problem.
The scarcity or financial bandwidth problem. This is where the neurobiology is so important. If you are under constant money stress, your brain is scientifically proven to shift into survival mode. This is a real physical response.
It's not a metaphor.
Not at all. Chronic financial anxiety is like any other chronic threat. It demands immediate resources from your brain.
We hear survival mode thrown around a lot, but what does it actually mean inside the brain when we're dealing with our finances?
It's intense, and it's so critical to understand this, that stress literally compromises the function of your prefrontal cortex, the PFC.
Okay, and that's the part of the brain that does what?
That's your executive function hub. It's responsible for planning, for complex decision-making, delayed gratification, long-term logic, all the things you need to get out of a financial hole.
And stress just shuts it down.
It prioritizes immediate threats. Your brain narrows its focus completely to, how do I make it through this week? How do I stop the bleeding right now? It essentially shuts down your ability to realistically think about next month or save for next year.
Because those long-term goals feel totally irrelevant compared to the immediate crushing pressure of today's bills.
They feel impossible. So the inability to plan or budget or save isn't a failure of character or a lack of desire. It's a lack of cognitive bandwidth. The stress itself prevents you from accessing the very tools you need to escape the stress.
That is such a profound reframe. It's a vicious cycle.
It is entirely a bandwidth problem. And this biological response, it explains why intelligent, capable, hardworking people can be holding down 2 or 3 jobs and still feel like they just can't get their feet under them.
You can't logic your way out of a problem when the logic center of your brain is essentially offline.
Exactly, you're overwhelmed. And that leads directly into the structural issue you mentioned before.
The single account trap.
Yes, this is foundational. Most people, because again, we're never taught otherwise, use only one single checking account.
Everything just goes into one big pot.
Everything. Mandatory bills, groceries, impulse buys, savings goals, emergencies. It is all swirling around in the exact same pot. The result is zero clarity.
How could you have clarity?
You can't. The money that has to pay the rent is mixed up with the money that you might use to buy coffee. And that mixing, that cognitive overload, it guarantees that the brain stays in panic mode. You look at a single balance, say $1,200.
And that number tells you nothing.
It tells you nothing useful.
Yeah.
Is that for rent? Groceries? Is any of it safe to spend? You have no idea without constantly recalculating and essentially guessing.
Which brings us to the emotional cycle that keeps this whole treadmill running. You know, when the paycheck finally hits, there's that momentary flood of relief.
For a second.
And then it's immediately followed by dread, because you know what's coming next.
That dread is what we see as paycheck shock. The phenomenon where the money comes in and within, 24 to 72 hours, that balance is just slashed.
Right, the auto pays.
The automatic payments for rent, mortgage, car, utilities, insurance, they're all timed to hit you right after the 1st or the 15th. You've barely even registered the income before the bills have swallowed most of it.
And then you're just left with a tiny fraction of it, trying to stretch that until the next deposit. The rest of the month is just waiting and rationing and worrying.
It is. And that profound emotional exhaustion, it directly fuels what we call emotional spending. This is where people start to self-medicate with money.
Let's spend some real time on emotional spending.
Yeah.
Because it's usually just framed as a failure of self-control. You know, just skip the latte. But you see it as something much deeper.
It's survival.
Yeah.
It is fundamentally about relief, escape, and coping with that constant, overwhelming anxiety. When your brain is stressed, when it's running on empty, it seeks quick comfort. It seeks a predictable reward.
Like a coffee.
A coffee, ordering delivery because you're just too exhausted to cook, a small, cheap purchase on a shopping app. The stressed brain is desperate for a sense of agency.
Control over something.
Exactly. It says, the rent is crushing me. The systems are overwhelming. I have no control over the big picture. So give me one small thing, this purchase, that I can control and that gives me an immediate, predictable shot of dopamine.
And for a moment, it feels good.
That momentary pleasure offers a sense of control and a brief break from the relentless anxiety. But it's so fleeting.
Right, because the inevitable outcome of spending money you couldn't really afford is guilt.
And guilt is the ultimate cycle sustainer. Guilt leads directly to avoidance.
You don't want to look at the bank app.
You avoid the bank app, you avoid having the hard conversation about budgeting, you avoid any actual planning. And that avoidance prevents you from implementing the very structure that would solve the problem.
Which just keeps the whole cycle of anxiety and stress going.
Round and round it goes. So if restriction and self-punishment and just trying to have more willpower, if all that leads to guilt and avoidance, then the solution cannot be more discipline.
It can't be. Discipline is a finite resource, especially when your brain is in survival mode. The real solution is structure. People escape the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle not because they suddenly develop superhuman willpower,
Right.
but because they fundamentally change the flow of their money. And that, in turn, calms the nervous system and creates reliable clarity.
Okay, let's talk about that structure. This is where we get into your 4 foundations framework. This is the backbone for building a real, viable exit strategy.
And these 4 foundations are simple, but their combined effect is profoundly powerful. The focus is entirely on minimizing friction, creating clarity, and generating financial peace.
Not perfection.
Not perfection. We are aiming for a sustainable system, not a temporary crash diet that's impossible to maintain.
Okay, so what's foundation 1?
Foundation 1 is cash flow clarity. This is about knowing with precision exactly when money comes in and exactly when it goes out. So moving from hoping to knowing.
Yes. You shift from, I hope I make it, to, I know exactly what is coming and when. That knowledge is the antidote to the anxiety that breeds in the dark.
Okay, cash flow clarity. What's number 2?
Foundation 2 is separation. And we cannot overstate this. It is psychologically and practically impossible to win with your money if it's all in one checking account.
You have to separate it.
You need designated separate lanes, different homes for your bills, for your spending, and for your savings. This is the physical structure that provides the mental clarity.
That separation really sounds like the engine for the whole identity shift we talked about.
It is, which leads to foundation 3. Buffer building. The immense psychological power of even a very small buffer, we're talking $200, $300, $500, is the critical element.
It's the breathing room.
It is the breathing room. It changes your entire psychological state from constant exposure to having a small, reliable shield against those little micro panics.
And the 4th foundation.
The 4th, which is so often missed, is emotional regulation, recognizing that you need proactive tools to calm your nervous system. The goal is to move your decision-making out of that overwhelmed scarcity mindset and into a place of clarity.
Because if you're panicked, you'll make bad financial decisions even with the best plan in the world.
Exactly. The whole framework is built on understanding that the anxious brain can't plan. The structure creates peace, and that peace allows the planning part of your brain to finally come back online.
I love that. And that piece really starts with clarity, right? Most people, like you said, have no idea how out of sync their income and expenses are.
None. Or how much cognitive energy they waste every day trying to track these imaginary balances in a single account. The goal is to offload that entire burden onto a reliable system.
So clarity is moving from, I hope I make it, to, I know exactly what's funded and what isn't.
Yes. When your brain knows what's happening, when it can predict the rhythm, the panic decreases dramatically. And when panic decreases, you can think clearly. When you can think clearly, you can take consistent, long-term action. The first step is just lifting the whole picture out of the fog.
Okay, so once we have that clarity, that map, the next huge non-negotiable step is separation. Let's really dig into the mechanics of this because I can feel some listeners resisting. The idea of opening multiple bank accounts might feel like it's adding complexity.
That resistance is real, and it's understandable, but it's based on a false premise. People think 4 accounts means 4 times the work.
When in reality,
it means 4 times the clarity and 4 times the peace. Structure, by its very nature, reduces complexity for the brain.
But what about the practical hurdles? Some banks have minimum balance fees, or it's a pain to constantly transfer money. Those are real issues for people.
They are, absolutely. And we have to acknowledge the logistical hurdles of a financial system that often penalizes people with lower balances. The key is to find a bank that offers 4 free accounts.
No minimum balance, no monthly fees.
Correct. Many credit unions, online banks, and fintech companies offer this exact setup. They want your business. You should never pay a fee for the privilege of creating structure, and then the entire system has to be automated.
So you set it up once, and then it runs on autopilot.
Precisely. Automation is critical.
Yep.
Now, let's detail the 4 accounts, starting with the cornerstone.
Okay.
Number 1, the bills account. Its function is incredibly simple. It holds money only for mandatory fixed expenses.
Rent, mortgage, utilities, insurance.
Phone, subscriptions, car payments, nothing else goes in, nothing else comes out. All of those mandatory automated payments are linked solely to this account.
What's the emotional impact of that? What makes it so different from just paying bills out of one account?
Instant, massive physical relief. When you check your main bank app, the money in this bills account is mentally off limits. It's already spent conceptually. You always know your core bills are covered.
The panic of, will my rent check bounce, just disappears.
It vanishes. It physically separates the logical, non-negotiable necessities from the emotional pressure of your daily spending. Like you said before, it's a firewall.
Okay, a firewall. I like that. Now for number 2, the spending account. This feels like where people start to get some agency back.
This is the safe-to-use money. This is your variable spending for daily life. Groceries, gas, dining out, coffee, personal shopping, the non-fixed rhythm of life expenses.
So how does that work in practice?
This account receives a set amount based on your budget, maybe weekly or bi-weekly. Let's say your weekly budget for groceries, gas, and miscellaneous is $350. You set up an automatic transfer for exactly $350 into this account every Monday morning.
And the impact of that is confidence.
Absolute confidence. You swipe your card knowing that if the money is in this account, it is safe to spend. You know all your other money, your rent money, your savings, your future expenses is protected somewhere else.
So that confidence helps break the emotional spending pattern.
It drastically reduces the anxiety that triggers it. If you spend the $350, you know you need to stop. But the consequence isn't financial ruin, it's just waiting for the next automated refill.
Okay, that makes sense. Next up is the savings account, or as you call it, the buffer. And you said this isn't about getting rich, it's about psychological resilience.
Precisely. This account is purely for security, for an emergency fund, for breathing room. And we have to anchor on the importance of the very first $200 you save.
Why that amount? What makes the first couple $100s so powerful?
Because that first $200 is psychologically more powerful for your nervous system than the next $2,000. It protects you against the micro panics.
What's a micro panic?
The $75 copay for an urgent care visit.
Yeah.
The $100 deductible on a car repair. The $50 surprise school fundraiser. These are the small, unpredictable things that typically cause a complete financial spiral.
Right, forcing you to use a credit card or pull from the bill money.
Which immediately shoves your brain right back into emergency mode. That shift from, I am constantly exposed, one crisis away from sinking, to, I have a tiny, reliable life jacket, is a fundamental identity shift.
It's not about solving poverty, it's about creating enough stability to even begin to think long term.
That is it, exactly. And finally, number 4, the future expenses account. This is the one that often prevents the whole system from collapsing. It handles the silent assassins of any budget.
The irregular stuff.
The irregularly non-monthly expenses that blindside people. Think about holidays in December, birthday gifts throughout the year, annual fees like Amazon Prime or professional license, quarterly car insurance premiums, medical deductibles.
They're predictable in that you know they'll happen, but they're unpredictable in their timing.
You've nailed it. So if your annual car insurance premium is $600, that's $50 a month. Instead of being blindsided by a $600 bill in June, you just have $50 automatically transferred into this account every single month.
So you're just funding it a little bit each paycheck.
And by doing that, surprise expenses stop being surprises. You've planned for them. So when you combine the clarity of the bills account, the confidence of the spending account, the safety of the savings buffer, and the preparedness of the future expenses account, you create this robust system that lets your brain finally take its foot off the anxiety pedal.
Okay, so separation gives us the structure, the lanes for our money. But that system only works if we know when to move the money into those lanes. So we need the map. We need foundation 1, cash flow clarity.
Absolutely. Clarity of timing is everything. We have to visually understand the rhythm of our money. As we said, most people live in this mental blur about due dates. They're pretty sure it's around the 15th.
And that guessing is so expensive.
It's prohibitively expensive financially and emotionally. The cost of guessing shows up as high-interest credit card debt to bridge a 3-day gap, late fees, overdraft charges, and just that constant energy-draining calculation in your head. Real clarity is like knowing the rhythm of your life. It's a concrete visual map.
Okay, so let's walk the listener through this right now. If someone is ready to sit down and map their money, what is step 1?
Step 1. Document everything. You have to pull the stress out of your head and make it visible. Write down every single bill you have, not just the name, but the exact amount and the exact due date.
So it goes from being this foggy cloud of stress to a tangible list of numbers and dates.
Exactly. Then, step 2, document income dates. List the exact dates your paycheck hits. Be precise.
And this is where the big revelation happens, right? This is when people realize they haven't failed. They just have a major timing mismatch.
It's the biggest aha moment for so many people. They see, oh my gosh, my rent and my student loans are due on the 1st, but my main paycheck doesn't land until the 9th.
Or they're paid bi-weekly and realize some months have 3 big bills hitting before the second check.
Yes. And they realize they've been blaming themselves for what is essentially a synchronization problem. It's a timing mismatch. And once you see that mismatch clearly, you can finally correct for it with the money map, which is step 3.
Okay, let's make this super practical. Let's say a listener gets paid bi-weekly. Rent is $1,500 on the 1st, car payment is $400 on the 15th. How do they build the money map to handle that big rent payment hitting before the first check of the month?
This is the critical step. We assign specific bills to specific paychecks. Let's say paycheck 1 lands on the 8th and paycheck 2 lands on the 22nd. So when paycheck 2 hits on the 22nd of the previous month, you have to look forward.
Right.
The map tells you that paycheck is responsible for part of next month's rent. So you immediately transfer half the rent, $750, to the bills account. You can also fund the $400 car payment that's due on the 15th. Then, when paycheck 1 hits on the 8th of the current month, you transfer the other $750 for rent. Plus, you fund your future expenses, and you top up your buffer. You're using 2 paychecks to build up the funds for one big bill.
So you're systematically making sure the money is already sitting there before the due date. The map lets you proactively build the funds instead of hoping one paycheck can cover everything at once.
That is the function. You are giving every single dollar a job before it even arrives in your account, and that job is tied to a specific due date.
It moves you from wondering where the money went to telling the money exactly where to go.
It's the pivot. It moves you from reactive mode to directing your money. The paycheck-to-paycheck cycle is defined by being on defense, reacting to bills, reacting to fees, reacting to emergencies. Cash flow clarity puts you back in the driver's seat.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. We've set up the 4 accounts, that's our structure. We've built the money map, that's our clarity. What happens when structure finally meets clarity? What's the profound psychological shift we're aiming for here?
The shift is transformative because that massive cognitive burden is just lifted. Your brain stops trying to categorize, calculate, predict, and guess all at once. The ultimate result is that your brain starts to trust the system you've built more than it trusts its own panic.
Trust. That is such a key word, because when you're in this cycle, you are fundamentally afraid of your money. You're afraid to even look at your bank account.
You absolutely fear it. And that fear is what drives the avoidance and unpreparedness that sustains the whole cycle. So the core transformation is moving from fear to trust. You can't build a stable financial life on a foundation of fear.
And the second shift is from confusion to control. But not control like micromanaging every penny.
No, control in this context is about predictability. It means knowing every dollar has a role. Knowing with certainty that the bills account is funded, knowing the spending account is truly safe to use without guilt. It's seeing your savings buffer grow, even slowly, and feeling that breathing room expand.
That predictability creates emotional safety.
And that safety is the foundation that enables better long-term decisions.
Which brings us back to the buffer foundation 3 and the emotional piece, foundation 4. Let's talk more about that identity shift the buffer creates.
The buffer is a turning point. We talked about the power of the first $200, but let's talk about the identity. Before the buffer, your identity is, I am someone who is constantly exposed. I always have to use a credit card for a small emergency.
Yeah.
After the buffer, even a small one, your identity shifts to, I am someone who has financial boundaries. I am shielded. The buffer is that demarcation point where you stop being constantly vulnerable to the small shocks and start operating from a place of managed risk.
And that reduces the frequency of those micropanics that keep your nervous system on high alert.
Exactly. And that leads directly into the component we really need to explore, emotional regulation. Because even with a perfect map and 4 accounts, if a big crisis hits or stress spikes, that old panic response can still trigger avoidance or emotional spending.
So the structure is the framework, but emotional regulation is the maintenance.
Yes. The goal is to develop tools to calm your nervous system before making financial decisions. One key tool is financial mindfulness.
What does that mean?
It means creating a deliberate pause between the impulse, the stress, the desire, the exhaustion, and the action, which is the purchase. When you feel that stress spike, that craving for comfort spending, you can practice a 2-day rule or a 24-hour rule for non-essential buys.
Just wait a day.
Just tell yourself, I'll check back on this item tomorrow.
And what happens in that 24-hour pause?
Your prefrontal cortex, your logic center, starts to come back online. You move out of the reactive, stressed brain and back into the logical, planning brain. And often, you realize the desire to buy something was purely a need for dopamine or control. Once that emotional need subsides, the logical decision becomes obvious.
That's a great practical tool.
Another crucial element is separating your self-worth from your net worth. This is huge for people stuck in this cycle because society constantly equates financial status with moral value.
That's a tough one to break, though. The whole narrative is weighted towards wealth signaling. If you're struggling, it's easy to feel like you're failing as a person. How do you break that link?
You have to consciously interrupt the negative self-talk. When that guilt cycle starts, I'm bad with money, I'm so lazy, you replace it with a factual statement about the system.
Like what?
I am a hard worker operating under extreme economic pressure, and I am actively implementing a structural system to change my flow of resources. You treat your financial organization as a non-judgmental, neutral task.
Like doing the laundry.
Exactly. It's like doing laundry or filing your taxes. It's just a mechanism. By removing the moral judgment, by recognizing your integrity and your effort are independent of your bank balance, you empower yourself to look at the numbers without that crippling avoidance.
So if discipline failed because it relied on willpower and led to guilt, structure succeeds because it provides automated relief and allows emotional regulation to finally take the lead.
That is the whole story right there. You are creating a sustainable financial environment where your brilliant brain can finally function the way it's supposed to. You're trusting the system, which allows you to stop using money as an emotional barometer for your self-worth.
That is such a powerful, holistic way to look at this.
Yeah.
We started by just acknowledging that physical and emotional burden that millions of people feel and recognizing that the problem is structural and psychological, not a character flaw.
And we established that the path out is built on 2 pillars. Structure separating money into those 4 dedicated accounts, and clarity mapping your cash flow to move from reacting to directing. The biggest takeaway is that you are replacing the overwhelming guesswork that drives anxiety with a stable, predictable system you can finally trust.
And if you are listening right now and feeling overwhelmed by the idea of doing all of this today, just focus on the single most powerful first step. Focus on building that small transition buffer. Getting that first $200 or $300 into a separate savings account will fundamentally change how you sleep, how you approach the month, and how protected you feel against those small problems that usually cause a complete panic. Just start there.
And here's a final thought I want to leave you with, one that connects this financial work back to your deepest self. We said earlier that financial stress is a physical reality.
Right. A tight chest, knots in your stomach, lost sleep.
Exactly. So if financial stress is a physical reality, then financial organization implementing this structure and clarity is truly one of the most powerful forms of physical and emotional self-care you can practice.
I love that.
So now that you know the steps to bring your nervous system calm through structure, consider this. If you could eliminate that daily physical burden of constant money worry, what non-financial area of your life would benefit the most? Would you have more energy for your family, more focus for your career, more creative bandwidth for a passion? Recognize that the true value of clarity isn't the number in the bank, it's the renewed energy and focus you unlock when the fear finally subsides.